Welcome, everybody, to the Scale Your Real Estate Podcast. This is episode 0, which means we're just filming this episode. And when I say we, I mean me. I'm filming this episode to simply just give you kind of the foundation, to tell you a little bit about myself, to tell you a little bit about why we started this podcast in the first place. So my name is Sam Wegert. I will tell you a little bit about my story, but first I want to answer this question. What is this podcast all about and why did we get started? Well, the big reason that we started this podcast is to help people achieve financial freedom and wealth. Now, there may be some of you on this listening to this or going through all these episodes, and you're on this level that I call 0 to ramen noodle. Because financial freedom is not just a set thing. Financial freedom is really a number, but it has levels to it. There's this level of taking care of your food, your transportation, your housing, your insurance, right? Your basic bills. That's called the ramen noodle level of financial freedom. And when you're passive-ish, I say that because, your income is never truly passive. Even if it's coming in from rental properties or businesses or whatever, and you don't have to work for it, you still should be looking over it. You still should be spending, an hour a week observing that income and checking in on that income and managing that income. And that comes right from Robert Kiyosaki himself. You want to spend that hour a week on that certain business or that income stream. But some of you are at that 0 to, I need to get to that base level. Some people call it base level financial freedom. You're not taking Disney cruises. You're not flying private. Heck, you're probably not even going on a vacation at all. But what it means when you get to that level is that you get to breathe a sigh of relief and say, you know what? At least if I never could work or earn another dollar the rest of my life, I'd be taken care of. Me and my family would be taken care of. We wouldn't be living high, but we'd be taken care of. That's the ramen noodle level. And then there's your current lifestyle level with you going out to eat however much you go out to eat right now, or taking the Disney cruise or whatever vacations you do take. What does that level cost? And that's your current income lifestyle. That's a beautiful step and a beautiful goal to reach. And then, of course, the third level is what we call the baller number. This comes from one of our coaches in our course, Financial Freedom University, Chris Beresford. Say his name correctly, Chris Beresford. Say that 10 times fast. And he says, that next level is the baller number. He's got a cool Australian accent, so he goes with the baller number. I don't even know if that's an Australian accent, but whatever. You get what I'm trying to say. Like the baller number. And that's like what the dream life, the life I want to live when I fly privately. And when I actually put numbers to this, it helps me understand these steps to financial freedom. So this podcast is going to give you ideas and wealth and strategies. And it's not going to give you the wealth, but the ideas and the knowledge to execute on creating that financial freedom. And then, of course, the next step is wealth. Creating wealth that gets passed down for generations, right? And that's a little bit of a different game I'm learning than just financial freedom. There's financial freedom and then there's wealth. And that is how are we playing not just offense, how are we playing defense with our finances? And I'm going to bring in guests that will talk about that aspect too. So no matter where you're at, we're going to be talking about how to scale your real estate and other strategies. And I believe real estate is one of the, if not the best strategy to achieve financial freedom in the marketplace today, while simultaneously building wealth, right? And so that's a big reason we started this podcast. The second reason we started this podcast, as I'm sitting here on July 21st, 2023, is to promote the strategy, what I believe is the best strategy in real estate right now to achieve financial freedom fast. And that is co-living. Airbnbs have had a great run, but co-living is on the rise. Co-living is what I call a blue ocean. Russell Brunson in his book, Expert Secrets, talks about a blue ocean versus a red ocean. Imagine you go to this ocean and you see that it's red, and it's red from blood because all the sharks are eating each other. They're the fish. Everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie. Everybody's trying to get a little piece of their return, and that's kind of like what's happening in, I don't know, sometimes even in stocks and bonds and these different things. Like, well, the financial advisor wants their piece, then the company that hired the financial advisor wants their piece, and everybody wants their piece of the pie, and so it becomes a red ocean. Airbnbs is similar to that way. You got property managers charging 30% now to manage the property, and then this software is charging that much, and then you got to have a noise monitor because you don't want people to get too loud, and that costs per month. And you got this software, and it's like everybody's getting their piece of the pie, and that's how you know that investment is mature, has matured, but your cash flow is not going to be as high. So as I sit here today, the best strategy, the blue ocean, which is imagine walking to another ocean and it's open and it's calm and there's a few fish in the sea, but there's not a lot of fish in that sea yet. Not everybody's fighting each other yet. That's where you want to go for the best cash flow. You want to go to the blue oceans. I'm all in on CoLiving. Now, I gave you the date of when I was saying this because you might be listening to this podcast 5 years from now. And if you're listening to this podcast 5 years from now, then that may not be, or 10 years from now or 20 years from now, that may not be the best strategy. But right now, it's the best strategy. It's not a red ocean yet. Could become a red ocean. All good investments eventually become red oceans. That's just how the cycle works. And so right now, though, it's what I'm all in on, and it's solving affordable housing. CoLiving is a rent by the room, shared housing type strategy, and it's helping to solve affordable housing. If you think about all the homeless people we have in the United States, if you think about everybody who needs housing in the United States, we actually have enough we actually have enough rooms, we actually have enough space to house everybody. We just aren't using that space for the highest and best use. And look, I'm part of the problem too. I'm sitting in a house with 4 bedrooms that I rarely use, ever. Right? Only when guests come over. So we have the space. Are we using it for the highest and best good? So we're going to be talking, and I'm going to be bringing on experts about this strategy a lot. CoLiving, rent by the room, how to build them, how to teach people how to do it, how to manage them, the nuances of managing them. We're going to have a guest on that's going to talk about how he's creating these little communities with 6, 7, 8 people in each home, and it's only for entrepreneurs. So it's an entrepreneur community. I have one person who wants to do it only for nurses. Only for medical professionals, right? So this strategy is taking off, and I started this podcast because I want to spread the word about that. And the third and big thing is you are going to hear me. I just had Brandon Turner on. He's actually going to be one of our first episodes that we release. And really, I started off the episode with him wanting to talk about, and he's the host of a very large podcast called Bigger Pockets, or he used to be. He was one of the founders and one of the hosts of that for many years, for about a decade. And I started off this podcast with Brandon Turner wanting to talk about real estate, because that's what he's an expert in. He's an expert in many things. That's one of the things people know him for. But we ended up talking about how do you create a better life? And what does a better life even freaking mean? And it was a beautiful, beautiful episode. And it made me realize that I started this podcast because a lot of you are out there, you say, and I was like this, and I still fall into this trap sometimes. Well, I want more money. I want more success. I want more homes. I want more passive income. I want to fly privately. I flew privately for the first time last month, and it was just this beautiful, amazing experience. I took my friend for his 30th birthday, my best friend for his 30th birthday, and some of his friends, and we all got together and we rented this plane. It was just this amazing, amazing experience. And I was like, this is the only way I ever want to fly. And while those things are great, and while we want more, what I've really learned from people after coaching people for 15 years, first in martial arts, I'll hear more about my story in a moment, first in martial arts and now in real estate, is that what people say they want is not ultimately what they really want. You see, we say we want money, but really we want a feeling that money gives us. That feeling could be security. For me, I'll just be really vulnerable and honest. That feeling is importance. I didn't feel important growing up. So I thought if I had more money, people would think of me as more important. I'd be more special. I'd be more significant. And so we go after these things to get the feeling. And I am incredibly passionate about not delaying gratification. If you want the feeling of significance, we're going to bring on guests that will talk about how we can get that now, how we can live an awesome life now and not be postponing a beautiful, better, amazing life. I'm not saying don't go fly private, because it's still something I want to do. I remember when I bought a Corvette. That was my dream car. And I was probably 25 years old. I bought this brand new, well, it wasn't brand new, it was new to me, Corvette. 2014 was the year. And that was the year of the car. And I bought this beautiful $500,000 house. Now, I didn't grow up very wealthy, so a $500,000 house to me was a lot. That was a big house. And I moved in with my girlfriend at the time, later to become my wife. And I remember getting depressed because as a kid, I always thought if I just could have a nice car and a nice house, then life, and a wife, I would have it made. That'd be life. And what I learned is that progress equals happiness. Growth equals happiness. There is no mountaintop, as a guest said on my show just the other day. There's no mountaintop. that progress is the game. And so I bring people on. I bring on experts. I brought on Jason Dries. You're going to hear from Jason Dries. He is a personal mindset coach for Brandon Turner and is just one of the most leading experts in how he thinks about the brain and how he thinks about setting goals and how he thinks about happiness. So we're going to bring in experts that are not going to just help you scale your real estate portfolio and help you take advantage of the blue ocean that's co-living, but also to just be able to live a better life now, which, by the way, is what we all truly, truly, truly want. And if you don't believe me, just ask yourself why a bunch of times. I want to make $10 million. Why? Because I want to. Why do you want to? Well, because it makes me, because I can give more money. Why do you want to give more money? Well, because, and you'll get to a feeling. You'll get to something you want to feel, okay? And you can feel that way right now, and then you can achieve and be happy. You can achieve happily. You don't have to first achieve and then be happy. You can actually be happy and achieve. Believe it or not, it can work that way. There's too many entrepreneurs out there that say, oh, well, I'm stressed. I like the stress because stress helps me accomplish things. And my question, people tell me that, is always like, is that really true? Can you really, really, really know that you wouldn't have accomplished more if you weren't stressed? If you weren't anxious? So we can live a better life now, y'all. And that is a big piece of what I'm here to accomplish. So that's why we started the podcast. That's why I started the podcast. And when I say we, I mean me, my team, got a beautiful bunch of people supporting me. My name is Sam Wegert, guys. I'll give you a quick intro on who I am. I'm a passionate young man right now, and I'm just so excited for life. I was raised in a small town called Amherst, Virginia. It's a town of about 2,000 or 3,000 people. My dad was a pastor. My mom and my dad decided to have 8 kids. So I was homeschooled. I had this really unique upbringing. And when I was 15 years old, my parents loaned me $15,000 to buy a martial arts school. Shout out to my mom and dad. They're amazing people. They've given me everything. They're so amazing. And I'm just so grateful for them in my life. And they gave me it as a loan. I want to be clear. They didn't give it to me. They said, you got to pay it back. And I paid them back. And I bought this little martial arts school. And I was 15 years old at the time. I was homeschooled so I could do it. I spiked my hair kind of like it is today so I'd look older. And what I ended up doing was I grew this school. It was my chance to be somebody, to get out there and prove myself as a man in the world. And I built this martial arts school, and I'm so passionate about martial arts. It gave me confidence. It gave me discipline. So if you're out there and you're considering martial arts, it's a great thing to do as a family. It's a great thing to do with your daughters. It's a great thing to do with your sons. It's a great thing to do as an adult. It's a great thing to do at any age. That's what's cool about martial arts. It's like golf. You can just play it at any age, right? It's pretty badass. And so I built this to an organization of 6 martial arts schools. I recently, as I'm sitting here right now, just sold off most of those so I can focus mostly on real estate and mostly on helping other people. My theme for my life right now is build real estate, teach real estate, and manage real estate. And that's what we do. So I now live in Charlotte, North Carolina. My wife and I live together. We have no kids at this current moment. And we're just excited to be building our businesses and to be sharing our stories with people. My wife has an amazing story. She's a huge part of everything that I've done and created and supported me in this journey. So she may not be the face, but she's behind the scenes along with an amazing team. I started, my first property that I ever bought was in a town called Charlottesville, Virginia. It was a 3-bedroom, 3-bath condo. And I lived in one room and I rented out the other 2, what's commonly known as a house hack. And I didn't think anything of it. I was making a little bit of money and I was kind of living for free. I was actually making a little bit to live there, which, by the way, if that's where you're at in your journey, that's an amazing strategy. We'll bring on guests to talk about that strategy specifically. And then what I did is I actually moved to Charlotte, North Carolina for my martial arts business at the time. And I bought this house, and keep in mind, I'm one of 8 siblings. So I was just like used to noise and commotion, and there was like no noise and no commotion. And so I said, I got to rent out some rooms just to have some people near me. I need some social interaction. So I started renting out some rooms. And one day a banker friend of mine, his name is Jason, came by and said, hey, how much are you renting that house for? And I thought, well, if I count myself as a renter, I'm renting this house for like $2,850. And he said that house, and it was not in the best area of Charlotte, but he said that house would only rent for $1,300. That was like 7-8 years ago. He said that house would actually normally only rent for $1,300 to a single family. And I was like, wow, I'm doubling the rent. That's pretty cool. And then I said, well, I wonder if I could do this with 5 bedrooms, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I kind of ended up buying these homes with the income I was making from the martial arts, from my W-2 job, my main gig, and ended up becoming financially free at a very young age through this co-living model, right? And that was really cool. And now I've scaled my portfolio to over 150 rooms. My mastermind, which is CoLiving Inner Circle and Financial Freedom University, we represent almost 1,000 rooms now across the United States. We're doing this co-living thing this at a fairly large level, and we're expanding and growing rapidly. We've only been at it, we've only been growing our mastermind for the last year or so. And so what's really cool about this is it started to click, and I started to realize I'm getting more cash flow than normal investors. Now, there were some systems that had to be in place. And then what I realized was I was actually helping people. What I realized is I would talk to servers, or I'd talk to people who work at a car repair shop, or talk to people that work at the grocery store. And, they'd be driving an hour to get to work because they couldn't live anywhere near where they worked. Right. And I started to realize become more aware of the affordable housing crisis that we have in America. And I believe as investors, we have a responsibility to create win-win solutions. You have a responsibility to get cash flow. That's your job as an investor. But if you can do that and the other person on the other end wins too, great. And that's what CoLiving is doing right now. So that's why I went all in on CoLiving, which is one of the big reasons I started this podcast. Now, I do believe strategies will change. We might be talking on this podcast, we might be talking about something completely different. I will bring in guests that will talk about multifamily investing and all the other different forms of investing, short-term rentals and everything that we're doing, subject to type loans and taking over people's mortgages and seller financing, all of that. Right? But the reason I'm all in on this is because I lived in co-living homes for 13 years. And I got to meet some of my best friends through these little communities that I was in. And I have this vision. Now, Europe is already way ahead of the United States in this, right? But I have this vision that people will want to live in community more than they would want to live on their own, which means that they will want to live in a communal living environment, a shared housing environment, a co-living environment, more than they want to live on their own, because people need community. And I do believe the economy is going to get worse before it gets better. That's a prediction. I don't know that. But if it gets worse before it gets better, when hard times happen, people bond together. We are social creatures in nature. So I digress. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but that's how I got into co-living. And then I got invited on the largest podcast, real estate podcast in the world, Bigger Pockets by Brandon Turner. And I got on there and so many people said, this clicks, this makes sense. I want to do this room rental strategy thing because I get it. And if I can learn the systems and I can do it well, then I can create cash flow and help people and solve affordable housing. So that is what we do now. That is a little bit about my story and why I'm here. And just, I'm passionate. I'm excited about sharing real estate and sharing financial freedom and coaching people to that level. I'm blessed to have accomplished a lot of success at a young age. And that's with not just me, that's with a ton of support from a bunch of people. And you can too. And if you don't believe that for yourself, borrow my belief, as Hal Elrod, the founder of The Miracle Morning, says, borrow my belief. You can too. It just takes a certain mindset. It takes certain strategies and it takes certain actions. It takes certain mindsets, it takes certain strategies and certain actions. And you will get those strategies, those mindsets, and the actions from this podcast. Enjoy it. My one last request is, please connect with me personally. Would love to meet you. You can DM me on Facebook at Sam Wegert. Wegert is Wegert. And then guys, here's just the truth. To get the word out about this podcast, you got to give us reviews. That's just the way of the world. You gotta share this with people. You got to give us a 5-star review. So if you're enjoying this, or if you even enjoyed this, if you even took one thing away from this little episode 0, please give us a 5-star review. If you took nothing away from this episode, you think it was the worst thing ever, please still go give us a 5-star review, okay? I'm being playful. Much love. Here's to your financial freedom. Here's to your meaningful life. I cannot wait to meet you along this journey. Please enjoy these episodes with absolutely amazing, amazing guests. And I'll look forward to meeting you one day in person and giving you a big hug and just seeing what you've learned from this podcast. Thank you and enjoy.